Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Welcome today to my full review of the Citizen GMT Eco Drive. Now I picked this one up and unboxed it maybe about a month or so ago, certainly long enough to get a reasonable handle on the pros and cons of the watch as I see them anyway for today's full review. I haven't looked at a lot of Citizens on the channel up till this point because I've always thought they were a bit dull. Maybe dull is not the right word, certainly competent, but perhaps not inspiring the passion within the community that Seiko do or Casio certainly do. But sometimes competent is just what you're looking for. I've often talked about that literal or figurative corner slot in your watch box, the one for the grab and go piece. The faithful has to be quartz watch that's always there for you when you need it, when all your other automatics have stopped keeping time. I reckon Citizen's Eco Drive technology makes a strong case for itself as that grab and go piece. That's why I picked this one up a month ago. Not only does it have Eco Drive, it's also a GMT, it's got a world time bezel and a cracking amount of water resistance, all backed up by Citizen's 5-year warranty. So is this going to be the literal cornerstone of my collection then? Is this the quartz grab and go keeper that I've been looking for? Let's flip the camera and find out. Alright, while I'm getting into the box, let's talk price, because price was one of the reasons, not just the Eco Drive. It was an economical purchase for me as well, this one. I paid 360 Aussie dollars. Now at the current exchange rate, that comes in at around 260 US dollars, or about 190 Great British pounds. I reckon that is a pretty good price for what's in the box here. The equivalent Seiko Turtle or Seiko Samurai from the same dealer that I bought this one is about 430 Aussie, so that kind of puts the price into perspective alongside a Seiko. As mentioned in the intro, the 5-year warranty is another reason why I bought this watch. I bought it from an official Citizen dealer. You get a full 5-year warranty. If you buy from an AD, you need to go really into the realm of Swiss luxury pieces to get better than a 5-year warranty, not to be sniffed at. By the way, this is the Citizen BJ7100-82E featuring the caliber B877. If I am going to get into Citizen this year, I'm going to have to get used to some of these model numbers, just as I have done with Seiko and Casio before them. Come on Japan, how's about some model names for a change? And I think it's a handsome looking watch as well. I'm definitely going through a bit of a stainless steel bezel phase personally at the moment. There is quite a lot going on in the dial. It's got that GMT function and the world time bezel as I mentioned, but it's not nearly as cluttered as the Blue Angels dial was that I reviewed a few weeks before this one. Let's do dimensions then. 41mm in diameter, 13.6mm thick. I thought one of the supposed advantages of quartz was that you could make your watches thin. I don't think Citizen got the memo. 49mm lug tip to lug tip, which is quite reasonable given the diameter. 22mm lugs. There's a bit of a taper down to 18, back up to 20 at the clasp. This one sized up for me, 7-inch wrist, weighs in at 166 grams. Again, I thought quartz watches were supposed to be light. Very nicely made though, all stainless steel construction. We've got a coin edge stainless steel bezel insert there. Screw down crown with 200 meters of water resistance, so you get plenty of utility with this one in addition to the GMT and the world time, and it's a good bracelet. 3-link bracelet with solid end links, solid links. They're just push pins, but I'm not going to complain at the price, and that is a great clasp. Citizen stamped into the fold over, double security pusher, and it is properly milled as well. If Citizen can do it, why can't Seiko do it for even more money? And the whole watch is finished to a very nice standard. All brushed throughout, but it's a really fine brush, very, very smooth to the touch. No fancy transitions or chamfered edges therefore, but very satisfying. Now the crown is guarded, semi-guarded anyway, properly knurled crown, and again signed with the Citizen Promaster logo. I'm looking at you once more, Seiko, who failed to sign crowns on watches costing 4 and 5 times this price. Very nice coin edge bezel and a nice stainless steel word timer insert. The bracelet finish is very nice. Similarly brushed to match the watch, there is a slight kind of line running across all of these links. It's a 3-link oyster style, by the way. I guess that just breaks it up visually and does change the reflection. I quite like the effect. I haven't seen that done before. And yeah, very good clasp. Citizen stamp there. Only 3 holes of micro adjust though. That will appear in the moans and niggles section later on. I could have done with a 4th. Ideally, you want the number of micro adjust to stretch between the 2 links, and it doesn't quite manage that, as you can see there. Case back is very simple, stainless steel and screw on, helping with that 20 bar 200 meters of water resistance. It is just printed though. It's got the Citizen Eco Drive and the World logo there. I don't imagine if you do have this watch in your box for 20 years that printing will remain, but it's nice initially anyway. So let's take it outside and have a look at the dial and hands under the macro lens. I think they got the dial just about perfect on this one. It's not a particularly big dial because of that big chunky world timer bezel and the huge and angled chapter ring, the rehaut there as well. So it's a relatively compact dial, but they've kept it very, very simple. It's all just printed. Arabics at the evens, so 12, 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10, and large white baton indices everywhere else. White on black, always fantastic for legibility. I like how they've integrated a frame around the date complication there at the 3 o'clock as well, also in white, integrating nicely with that baton at the 3. Citizen and Eco Drive printed beneath the 12, and the Promaster logo, GMT and World Time printed above the 6. All nice and clean, all sharply done. The handset, I think, are very well proportioned and also really legible because of that white on black look. So it's a segmented arrowhead hour hand with a kind of nice sharp tip to it. Very simple fence post minute hand. And a nice all white arrowhead second hand with white counterbalance. Now the only colour on the dial, the only colour anywhere on the watch is the GMT hand. I wouldn't say it was orange, it's almost kind of copper toned. This watch is also available in green and in blue with different colours of GMT hand, but I like what they've done with this one, just adding a tiny bit of colour to break it up. And check out the depth on that chapter ring. 24-hour markings on this one, also in white. Nice and legible, nice and usable, but incredibly deep. You wait till you see what this one looks like when I get it on wrist. Now, just because it's a printed dial doesn't mean to say they've cut down on the lume. I'm not quite sure what lume Citizen uses on its watches. It has that green glow of C3, and initially it looks fab. Plenty on the Arabics, the batons, and loads on all of the hands. Unfortunately, when I crank the speed up, the Arabics and the batons are the first things to go. The GMT hand and the hour minute hand do hang on in there. Not quite sure what you're going to reference the GMT hand against though, because all of those markers are long gone. The lume, you know, it's okay. It's not amazing, but it's perfectly respectable for the money I spent on it. So we've had a look at the dial and hands. Let's have a look at the movement and how it operates and how this world timer bezel operates as well. As noted, this is a Citizen in-house caliber B877 Eco Drive module. 4-hand plus date complication. Now, Eco Drive, that means that when fully charged by natural light, it will last for 6 months between charges. The second hand will give you an indicator if it's running low on charge. It will tick every 2 seconds rather than every 1 second. That's how it was when I got it out of the box initially, oddly enough. And it took about 2 weeks of occasional use for me to get it beyond that stage. If it's ticking every 2 seconds, it means you've only got about 3 days charge left. I ended up having to leave this watch on a window ledge. I'll pop in this little chart here. That was from the 37-page instruction manual, by the way. Note that I read it. I just pulled out this chart for your and my benefit. 3 minutes of full sunlight will run this watch for a day, but that equates to 3 hours of indoor lighting. So do bear that in mind. If this is a grab and go piece, if it is going to lurk in your watch box, if that watch box has a metal or wooden lid, you might need to leave this one on a window ledge occasionally to keep it topped up with charge. If it's got a glass lid, it should be okay as long as it's getting roughly 3 hours of indoor lighting. All right, if we unscrew that crown and pull it out to the first position with a pop, nothing at all happens because this isn't an automatic. If you pull it out to the second position, if I roll it backwards, the date changes. If I roll it forwards, the hour changes. It jumps in 1 hour increments. So if you are actually an international jet setter and you're crossing time zones all of the time, you'll see the second hand hasn't stopped ticking. That means you can cross time zones at your leisure and the watch will still remain accurate. It will still be to the second accurate, or as accurate as it was when you set it initially anyway. Pull the crown out to the second position and all 3 hands barring the second hand will adjust at once. So to set this one initially, you actually adjust the GMT hand and the minute hand, and then you can adjust the hour hand as I just showed you earlier on. So how does the world time bezel insert work? Well, it works in conjunction with the GMT 24-hour markings on the chapter ring. I'm in Sydney, if you didn't already know. Let's assume that it is midnight here in Sydney. What time is it elsewhere in the world? Well, that would make it 9 AM in New York and 9 PM in Bangkok. However, that assumes that everybody is on the same daylight savings time, which isn't always necessarily the case, so you do have to kind of factor that into your calculations. The bezel, by the way, is bi-directional. It's just on a spring clip, very much like a Vostok Amphibia bezel. That means you're probably going to knock it occasionally, but this is an occasional use utility here rather than something you're going to be dealing with all the time or you want to have preset. So you kind of set it when you want to. And that's it on wrist. I have got a 7-inch wrist for your reference, and I must say I think it wears quite well on me. It is a bit heavier though than I would normally have expected at 166 grams. With a watch this weight, I tend to wear it high up the wrist and I tend to wear it a little bit tighter than I would if it was lighter. And what about that chapter ring? As I said, huge angle and huge depth. It looks like a much thicker watch on wrist than it actually is. 13.6mm is not slim for a quartz as noted, but it looks even chunkier than that because of that enormous angled rehaut. Legibility though is fantastic, always the same with white hands, white numerals on a plain black dial. Super easy to read, and I believe there is a bit of anti-reflective undercoating on that mineral crystal for good measure. When I take the watch outside in natural light again, I think it confirms that bit of anti-reflective undercoating. There's a little bit of flecto, but not to the point that you can't see the dial. It's always legible, it's always nicely visible. On wrist, it is a big and chunky watch, but nicely balanced. I think a lot of that 166 grams actually comes from the bracelet, those big thick links of that 3-link oyster style. Looking down the wrist, nice smooth case profile and a bit of downturn from the lugs. 49 is reasonable for a 41mm diameter watch. That little bit of extra curvature helps it fit nicely. And the pocket shot to finish, love that stainless steel bezel insert. I may have expressed my love for that stainless steel bezel insert once or twice already this video. Overall, the whole thing looks pretty good, all brushed, white on black. But I do have some moans and niggles today, don't I always? I'm not going to complain too much about the mineral crystal because it's reasonable for the money I paid, and I paid the money knowing it was mineral crystal. I am going to complain a little bit more about the thickness though. 13.6 from a quartz. Yeah, it's all about depth in that chapter ring, but I would love to see them shrink that by at least a mil. They could have trimmed probably a mil out of the bezel, no problem at all, or a 0.5 mil off the case back, or a 0.5 mil off each of those, and I think it would have been more wearable as a consequence. Similarly, as nice as this chunky bracelet is, 166 grams is maybe a little bit heavier than I was expecting. I would love to have seen it at 12.5 and 140 grams, say. And then there's the hands. Oh, the hands. So that's the watch stopped on the hour, and let's see where all the hands are. Is the hour hand pointing to the hour? No, it's not. I reckon the hour hand is maybe 8 minutes fast. Is the GMT hand pointing to the hour? No, it's not. I reckon the GMT hand is maybe 10, maybe even 15 minutes fast. And then, of course, there is the second hand. I'm sure you probably picked it up earlier on. It manages to hit absolutely none of the markers. Now, if you're OCD, that's like being stabbed by a needle every second second where it misses the markers. I could live with it. I kind of forgive it at the price, but I know some people cannot forgive a quartz that doesn't hit all of the markers, and that's the reason why they don't like quartz. It is just one example, but it is a little bit disappointing to find all of those hands are a little bit skew-whiff. So a well-priced GMT watch from a big brand that needs minimal servicing. It is unlikely that this one will ever need servicing. Occasionally they need the capacitors in the back changed, but you should be able to run one of these for decades comfortably. Chunky, well made, well machined, good bracelet, and 200 meters of water resistance. I can forgive the hand misalignment on this particular model, and the Lume is not amazing, but it's certainly up to standard for what I would use this watch for. Does that mean to say it is going to be my keeper grab and go piece lurking in that corner of the watch box? Well, probably not. It is just a little bit thick and a little bit heavy for me personally. Maybe I'll keep this one for another couple of weeks, maybe I'll keep it for another couple of months, but I will probably end up selling it. What am I going to buy with the money I generate? Well, I'm going to buy another Citizen EcoDrive. I am not done with this brand. There is a vast range of watches out there for me to explore, and I'm sure the perfect grab and go from Citizen is out there waiting for me. I just haven't found it quite yet. So there you have it, well done for making it all the way to the back end of the video. If you're a fan of Citizen, do check out the review of the Blue Angels watch that I released a couple of months ago. And if you like a quartz GMT, why not have a look at the Phoebus Eagle Ray GMT, one of their best, and they're bringing it back later on in 2021. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in a future video.